I mean, who hasn't dialed the number thinking to yourself, are they going to pick up? Are they going to be available? All I need is someone to talk to. Hi, my name is Neil Matthews. That's where low-key listening comes in. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with a real-life person. Go to your phone's app store right now, whether it be Google Play or Apple App Store. You can download the app for free, set up a free account, and somebody will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's right, a real-life person. Listen, I know not all of us love to talk like I do. That's why they have this amazing feature where you can send voice notes or even text the person. Here's the best part. It's completely anonymous. The person you're talking to and you both get to stay anonymous. It's called low-key listening. Check it out right now, again, at your phone's app store. Again, whether you're feeling overwhelmed or not, maybe you have a victory to share. Check out low-key listening right now, again, at your phone's app store. Set up a free account. Low-key listening. Talk, be heard, feel better. Available now. Low-key listening.
They say opportunity knocks, but what if it's not opportunity? What if it's something or someone else? A familiar voice from the past, a chance you've been waiting for, a mistake you thought you left behind, or maybe something far bigger than you imagined. Some doors were open without hesitation, others will cautiously peek through, and some we wish had never answered. This season on Other People's Shoes, host Neil Matthews is asking one question. Who's there? Will you answer? Will you hesitate? Step inside season 22 of Other People's Shoes, where every knock holds a story, and every door leads to a choice. Now here's your host, Neil Matthews.
Yes, welcome in, one and all. That's my main man, Stu, giving us a little introduction into today's show and even today's season. Welcome in. It is Who's There? That's what we're calling this season, after all. And it actually makes me think, okay, bear with me on the lameness right now, the corniness of it. Knock, knock. Your response would be, who's there? And I would say, boo. And you would say, oh, boo-hoo. And I would say, don't cry. It's just a joke. That was one of my favorite jokes, by the way, growing up, was that joke. Don't cry. It's just a joke. But you know, it's interesting about the idea of crying and things being a joke is it seems like nowadays, especially, I don't know, maybe, you know, now that we're in 2026, it seems different now. It seems like the things that we used to find funny and humorous and we'd laugh at and like, haha, that's funny. Now we like scratch our head and go, I don't know if that's funny anymore. Like I could easily right now make a joke about our next guest saying the Grim Reaper was knocking at her door and ready to take death and life and everything from her. Now some would be like, wow, Neil, that's sort of tacky and maybe not very funny. In the right context and maybe in the right light, we could just be like, psych, sarcasm, just, you know, laugh about it. What are we really laughing at? What are the things that we really maybe should stop, pause for a second and think to ourselves, is that really funny still when someone is crying? I don't think it's ever fun. Debbie Downer, here I am. I'm trying to find some light and some humor today. About that for you as we get going and rolling today is think about that as we dive into today's episode and find out who's at our front door today. Help me welcome in my new friend, Kelly. Kelly, how are you today?
Hey, Neil, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. And you know, it can be kind of funny. You know, I try to find the humor in this crazy thing that's been going on. So I'm not opposed to a little sarcasm. That's fine by me.
Well, that's good because again, I'm thinking of when you think about somebody being at your front door, the first group of people maybe that come to my mind is those Amazon kids and campers. Those are fun. Those are always fun. You mentioned flowers to us in our pre-show and even our pre-sheet, which let me tell you, by the way, as a guy, I've never received flowers. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, honey. I've never.
I'll do my best after we get done.
I'm just saying that to my wife. Like I've sent her flowers repeatedly and they've never been sent to me.
Give me her name and number and I'll work on it for you.
All right. Fair enough. The other one that comes to mind too is those kids that wear the badges and the white shirts, LDS people. Maybe that's what they're called. And then the other one is the Jehovah Witness people. They also seem to come to my door quite a bit. Being candid, it's a little harder to get to my door these days because there's this gate with a code and it's not easily accessed unless you know the code. And if you know the code. I'm excited to hear more about your story because again, we kind of teased a little bit the idea that maybe death was at your door, but we'll find out more about that maybe as my mom would say, let's put a pin in that for now. We'll come back to it. Help us with this because we love truly to lead off the show with this question, and that's this. What's your favorite pair of shoes to wear and why?
Oh, is it possible to say shoeless?
I'm not shoeless?
I know.
Ah!
All right. I would have to say it would be next to shoeless would be my water shoes because I can feel the ground through them and I can be grounded through them. And I'm usually in an ocean or a body of water when I'm wearing. So that would have to be my answer. Not good to come onto a shoe show and talk about new shoes.
That's okay. That's okay. This isn't like Kenny Chesney, XM Radio, No Shoes Radio. I mean, it could be.
Okay,
probably
fair
not.
enough. You're not gonna kick me off.
I mean, maybe not. I've had shoe judgment. Apparently, I'm not Wapner or Judge Judy. Good night. I mean, we do tease that everyone should have a good pair of shoes and a good bed, but no sponsorships have come our way just yet.
Yeah.
So funny story. I was trying to get water shoes or water socks, depending on the terminology you want to use. And I was actually in Miami, Florida, of all places, at a Walmart. We were going to the Bahamas, and I thought, oh man, I didn't pack my water shoes. I know this shocks some, like, Neil, you didn't? You were the shoe guy. It happens. And I went to Walmart and I tried to explain to the lady who only spoke Spanish, by the way, in Miami, what I was looking for. And she sent me to the water bottle aisle, not
very hard to put those on. Very hard.
Very, yeah. So it's
duct tape.
It's interesting too that you would say water shoes or water socks. Again, tomato. No one has ever said that. You're the first.
Zapatos de agua.
Your Spanish is clearly better than mine because all I say is muy poquito, nachos, and definitely margarita. I got that one down. So. All right.
You'll get by just fine.
When we talk about this idea of who's there and someone being at your front door, I think we've even called it someone's knocking on life's door. Who or what maybe was that person?
It was actually my other self, my next best self, I think, knocking on my door. A pretty tough 25, 30 years, really, really hard. I had been told for a very, very long time to slow down and take it easy. I didn't heed any of that. It's interesting. The body, God, whomever, whatever you believe in, just said, hey, knock, knock. We're going to do it for you. Giving you a couple of options, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to force you into a rest period. And as traumatic and as difficult and as challenging and as unwanted of a guest as that person at my door was, turned out to be the most beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing for me. I think it was me saying, hey, slow yourself down. More to life than what you got going on.
There's one thing about being slowed down. I'm guilty of this. I think we all can sometimes go at a slower pace. Sometimes it doesn't have to be so rushed. Sometimes we can stop. Maybe you would echo this. Sometimes we can stop and smell the roses. It's a very good, fun cliche. Really enjoy life. From the sound of it, and again, maybe I'm projecting here, this was almost debilitating. This was almost life-taking. This wasn't just, hey, I need to less things off my plate or less things off my task list. This was a little bit bigger than that.
This was pretty huge. This was a true near-death experience. This was having a choice to stay or go. This was doctors while I was in ICU telling me to call my family and say goodbye. This was my girlfriend going and getting my daughter out of a matinee movie, and bringing her to the hospital so I could say goodbye to her. This was big stuff. It wasn't just quick. I'm still recovering. This was all happening in June of 2023. They thought that I had pneumonia. Turns out that it wasn't pneumonia. It was a very rare autoimmune disorder that attacked my lungs, filled my lungs with scar tissue and inflammation and things, where I was respiratory failure for months. Was in the hospital for several months in ICU and in a pulmonary rehab, literally fighting for every single breath. After that, it took me from there to an inpatient rehab center called Shirley Ryan. I had to relearn how to walk, talk, breathe. Then I went into 18 months worth of day rehab, 5 days a week, 3 to 5 hours a day, and trying to build stamina. And then after that, I went into another 6 months of just regular physical therapy and pulmonary rehab. Today, even, I'm a little over 2 years out. My life is very different. On oxygen, probably 60 to 70% of the day, and hiking and walking and traveling and all those things that were so easy for me to do are no longer easy to do. Really allowed me to take the time. When I say slow things down, you're right. It's not just smell the roses or go get a pedicure or take an afternoon off and lay in the tub. We're talking about healing significant burnout, significant trauma. I wore my exhaustion as a badge of courage and a badge of honor back in the day. I'm fine, I'll get it done. And I got it done. I all got it done, but to what expense? And it was to get it done at the expense of my health. So I was gifted, if you will, this opportunity to slow myself way, 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 way down. And it was the best thing for me.
The first thing that you said that really jumped out at me is you talk about having to make phone calls and having to make personal one-on-one goodbyes, whether that be, again, in person or via phone or maybe Zoom, making these goodbyes. What did that do to you, realizing that this, in fact, may be the goodbye? The word goodbye, I struggle as a person with. There's nothing good about a goodbye. There never is a good goodbye. I don't care who you are. There's never a good goodbye.
You know, that's a great question. I go through this a lot. You know, when people have near-death experiences, they all are a little bit different. You've heard people say that they were hanging out above the room and they could see everything that was going on. You hear people say that there was beautiful lights. For me, it was so incredibly beautiful and so peaceful and so calm. In my head, what I thought was fully conscious. And I could hear people going around me. I could hear things beeping and buzzing and things along those lines. I went into this calm and peaceful kind of negotiation with myself. I didn't see family members. I didn't have a white light. I just had this most beautiful tranquility that I could have ever found. And it was restorative. I mean, that's a huge word to think about. There was no more pain. There was no more sadness. There was just calm perfectness. In that conversation with my brain, I was like, oh, wow. So this is it, huh? This is how it's going to go down. Real conversation I was having with myself, like, this is it. Do you really want to go? And I'm like, no, I don't really want to go, but I'm just so tired. I just want to put my head down and keep it down. And I just don't know if I could keep going on. I went through the laundry list of, will my daughter be taken care of? Yes, I've got all of her paperwork situated and she'll be okay. And she'll have somebody to take care of her 25 at the time, year-old daughter with nonverbal autism. If you know anything about having special needs kids, leaving them after you're not here is terrorizing. Very at peace with what I had situated. I kept kind of going through that checklist. Okay, the house is going to be fine, and your dad's going to be fine, and everything's going to be fine, and you're going to be fine. You can let go. And I think in that letting go piece, in that reality that I had a choice to let go, I don't want to let go. Thought, you know what? I want this peace and tranquility so badly because my life was very chaotic. If I stayed, how could I create it? How could I have it in real time? How could I find it and create it in real time? And it was seriously a decision to stay. Like, you know what? You can go anytime. In staying, that's the challenge. And I'm always up for a good challenge. So I made that decision to hang around. And then it wasn't a fight. It was a knowing. It was a complete knowing that I just had to keep putting one foot in front of another, one foot in front of the other. It was peaceful. The recovery was very, very hard and very complicated and slow. However, there was improvement, even if it was a millimeter every single day. And those days that weren't so great were still great because something great happened in those. The hospital that I was at, 3 hours away from all my family and friends. So I was in this hospital for several months by myself. In the very beginning, my girlfriend came down to my Power of Healthcare and she sat with me and listened as all this lingo was going on and what they were going to do and what they could do and what they couldn't do. And that was great. It was 3 hours round down and 3 hours back. It wasn't really realistic for people to come visit. Some people are like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. But in actuality, it was great. I had 2 solid months. I framed it in my brain that I had rented a little studio apartment downtown in Chicago on Michigan Avenue. It was at Northwestern Chicago. It wasn't quite Michigan Avenue, but it was similar. And I had this big picture window. I just envisioned myself being on a girls' retreat and taking those 2 months. I journaled and slept and cried and got back in touch with me. And that's why I say I think that's who was at the door. That person that was on the inside that under layers and layers and layers of responsibility and expectations and grief and things was just like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. So there was a true shedding of, I think, my old self into becoming this new self.
Northwestern Wildcats.
Northwestern Medicine, a great respect for them. When I was in the ICU and I had 4 ports attached and I had more chemicals than probably should have been allowed going in at a time. I had to give my body over to the doctors. Once I made the decision to stay, I had to give my body over to the doctors. It wasn't about me. They say, hey, we can do elective surgery or we can wait. It wasn't about that. It was like, you guys have to do what you can do. You understand the body. I don't understand what I can do right now. So I just have to completely turn my body over and trust that I'm in the best possible care that I could be at. And that was very, very freeing in a very weird kind of a way. That lack of control, we're all fighting for control. We all want control. And that ultimate lack of giving up that control over your own body, pretty much got a control freak back then. I didn't even ask what they were shoving into my veins. They were just doing it. And my goal was to receive. My goal was to receive, and really good having a good conversation with my body saying, okay, ladies, this is coming in. It's supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Let's receive it. Let's make it welcome. Let's let it do its job. That was literally my job for a couple of months, was just sitting there and letting the doctors save my body while I saved my soul.
The other thing that keeps coming to my mind that I feel like be addressed, how on earth financially did this not cripple you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting piece because it did. Before I got sick, I had started a school for children with autism, who had been the executive director for nearly 20 years. It was my school. I started it in my basement. When I say I don't mean like it was nonprofit. I had so many wonderful human beings to help me to grow it and make it what it is. It was my brain, it was my vision and things like that. At that point in time, was making decent money. It was making pretty good chunk of change, not anything super duper, pretty good chunk of change. I got sick in June, and then in December, board of directors and the new executive director there decided that I should medically retire from the school. My last disability paycheck came on December 24th of 2023. I didn't have any say about it. I had no income coming in whatsoever. Lost my business, my purpose, my passion, my daughter's legacy. It just was all gone. It's not like I had done anything wrong. I understand business. I completely understand it. And today, as I sit, I have to say it was one of the hardest things in my life to swallow. Today, as I sit here, it was the best thing that had happened because I would have continued to kill myself to make it go. I was really grateful to have been a saver. So I had saved enough money. When I actually took my salary and I broke it down, a friend of mine who's a great financial person, we broke it down, and it was really after you take out taxes and after you take out gas and after you take out your dry cleaning for your position, fun things you have to buy for the Christmas parties and the birthday parties and the baby showers. And when I took all that stuff out, I wasn't really living on that big of a dollar. Between widow's benefits, I was widowed at 40. Our daughter was only 5. Well, she just turned 5. I've been on my own for 22 years. I had no other safety net. It's just me. I'm really proud. I own my own home. I paid off my own cars and I had a little bit of savings, but I was able to take widow's benefits, just this much of what my income was. But when I took that and I looked at my rainy day fund and I separated that, I was certainly not in the same position that I was before I got sick. I was in a position where I could take 18 months, almost 2 years, be able to work on myself to get healthier. I'm still working on the health part. And that was a gift as well. They say you're supposed to save a couple of months worth of salary in case of catastrophe. And I had done that. I'm older than you. And I come from the old school way where they had all those rules. Your parents had all those rules for you. Got to have this much saved. Engagement rings are 2.5 months of your income, all those things. I don't think that is really the case anymore. I do highly recommend that people have a rainy day fund, however you get it, because you never know when it's going to rain. And it poured and poured and poured here. I was able to keep everything afloat somehow. I decided, I need to have something coming in for income as well. I had been consulting and been a life coach for years and years and years in academia. I'm good at helping people and I like helping people and it fills my cup. Knowing that I did not want to go back to a 60, 70, 80 hour a week business where I was responsible for paying over 100 people and making payroll and fundraising millions of dollars and the stress of all of that. I was like, what could I do? Really got super quiet and listened. And I was like, just help people. I went back, got my certification for life coaching. And now I coach other women, specifically some guys too, primarily women, burnout and major life transitions. You'd be surprised at people that are really not prepared for retirement. And it's not a financial thing. I think everybody focuses on the financial. They don't focus on the emotional piece. Your purpose is gone. Your schedule is changed. You leave behind all those people you thought you were your buddies. They don't come with you. They stay at the job. Everything looks a little bit different. Your identity shifts. Learning through my own experience, I've had the ability to kind of coach many women who are going through getting ready to retire, thinking about retire, have been retired a couple of years, and it's not what they want. So I've been doing a lot of that. And because of the school, because of autism and having built a school for autism, my daughter, 27 now, needs some place to go as a young adult. Now I'm building in the works of building and consulting for adult programming, living situations with work situations and day programming for adults with autism.
The other thing I hear you say, and a lot of what you were just telling us, is death seems to be in your life. Death seems to be no stranger in your life. It seems to be around you. You talk about losing a spouse.
Yeah, I've had a lot of death in my life. My husband died from a glioblastoma. He was in his early 40s. That was a surprise. One October, we were sitting down on a Sunday watching the Bears game, and he had a grand mal seizure. And when the paramedics got there, they asked me how long he had had brain cancer. And I was like, what are you talking about? Come to know now that adults in their 40s, if they have a seizure, it's typically where it's leading or something to the brain. And he was gone the following July. It was very quick, very fast. My mom had a massive stroke at the exact same time that my husband was in the process of his dying. My dad called me and they were in the parking lot of Sam's. And my dad said, hey, your mom has just had a massive stroke. I told my husband, I said, I got to go. Called his friend and he was hanging out with him so I could get to the hospital. In the hospital, in ICU with my mom. Didn't know. I'm like, where am I supposed to be, God? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Should I be here with my mom who's dying? Should I be home with my husband who's dying? I don't even know where my child with disabilities is right now. I just have to trust that someone in our group, somebody in our tribe, somebody in our posse has her and she's safe. Spent the night and then I got up the next morning to go home and take a shower. Walked in the door to my house. My husband's buddy was like, he's been resting. And I said, okay, cool. I went up to take a shower. I said, just give me 15 minutes. Just as I turned the water on, his buddy screamed, came down and he was having a grand mal seizure, which we couldn't control. And so back to the hospital we went. Same hospital. So for over a day, I ran between ICU and the emergency room between my mom and my husband. It was one of the most surreal days that I could ever possibly imagine. And then my husband passed. And then my mom hung around for quite a while. My dad did a remarkable job with helping her to regain a little functionality. She was paralyzed on the left side and we were blessed to have her for a bunch of more years. But in the meantime, my brother was diagnosed with lung cancer. He was my significant other, really. We were cut from a very similar cloth and he was one of my best friends. And he passed away from lung cancer in the midst of all of that. And then my mom, it's been a lot of stuff and in a really short kind of period of time. You know, they say that lungs hold the grief in our bodies. If you believe in that metaphysical woo-woo, Louise Hay kind of stuff, that lungs hold your grief. When I look back at, did I fully grieve each of those experiences? I would have to say the answer was no, I didn't fully grieve those experiences because they were happening so quick and I had to jump from one to another, to another, to another. And I had a daughter I had to take care of and the grieving process, I didn't complete it. I surely grieved, not to the extent that I needed to. In looking at, why did my lungs take a beating for this particular new experience that I have, it makes good sense. It makes good sense that I had so much grief that was going on that I didn't grieve, that's where it hit, was in my lungs. It's been a very rocky life. When you stand, I think, at the end of the trail and you look back, I hope that other people are able to do this too. When you look back, you really do see how one links to the other and why did you go on the left fork instead of the right fork and how it gets you to where you're at the end of your life.
Well, again, Kelly, thanks so much for sharing that. I'm sure every time doesn't get any easier.
I don't know if it gets easier. I get to grieve it a little bit more on a different piece. And that's what I want to do and why I'm so grateful to be on podcasts like this. I'm hoping that there's somebody out there as well that this message is going to reach. Maybe there's a husband, a wife, or somebody that's overworking and they're just feeling all beat up and hope their doctor has said, dude, your blood pressure is too high. You got to slow down. And I want to say, slow down. Just do it. There's really the fear of being unsuccessful is not at all something to be afraid of. That's your identity. That's what you need to work on. You're always going to be taken care of. Everything is going to be fine. It's all going to work out. You can't do a damn thing if you don't have your health. You just can't. It doesn't matter if you've got $50 million in the bank. If you don't have your health, you can't do anything with it. And then I think the other thing that these things do by sharing this story allows me to, I don't want to say relive it, walk alongside it.
I don't think I've ever done this either, Kelly. So you're really breaking into some firsts for me. The water socks, water shoes, and now this. I want you to do something for me right now while we're together. Ready?
Ready.
I want you to take a big inhale and then exhale. I want to hear it on the audio. Big as you can, like... All right. There's a reason for that.
All right.
How grateful are you for that breath?
Oh, I'm a big journaler. Do you journal?
I'm a big concept journaler. Like I have ideas and I do like bullet points. So that's not necessarily journaling.
So I'm a huge journaler. I don't have fancy books. I just have, Walmart $1.97 spiral notebooks anyway. And I keep them. About 4 months ago, I got brave. I read through my journals from when I was in the hospital. It was fascinating to me because I thought I was lucid, and I was lucid. Woohoo, some of the things those medications do to you is a little crazy. There was a whole page in there where I was literally, in the first 3 weeks or whatever, I was just making tally marks every time I took a breath because that's all I could control. And so I've got this whole page of just these tally marks. Being grateful for each and every breath is an understatement for what I've got going on. It's a beautiful thing.
And that's why I was asking is I think we're all on some level guilty of taking advantage of something that we think is always going to be there.
Yeah, we think we're infallible, I think, to a certain extent.
And it's the little things in life that I think we forget about. When that loved one passes and we're like, I just want to hear I love you again from so-and-so. I just want to get a hug from, again, X person again. I want to just spend one more meal with X person again. Goodbyes, as I said, there's nothing good about them. Never. I go back to my original statement. I'm still struggling with the idea that I really want people to understand that when they're gone, they're gone. We don't get a mulligan. We don't get a do-over. Kelly, if you were to pass in those days, you had already talked about it's the worst fear. What happens to Susie or JoJo or, whoever when they're gone? Who picks up the baton and cares for them? And again, it's not that they're not capable of doing that. Some are, some aren't. But I have a good friend of mine who has said for years, Neil, I don't know what happens to my son when I'm gone. What happens? I don't know. The child who has special needs doesn't understand death like maybe you and I would understand death, or most people would understand death. They don't understand it.
Yeah, you make a good point. And I think that getting to the end of this trail and looking back, I've been exposed to so many loved ones passing away in preparation for this time. When my husband passed away, it was seriously like he was just plucked off the earth, gone, and the world continued to go without him. When my brother was plucked off the face of the earth, and by plucked, I mean, he ascended to wherever he's at. There was grief, and the world continues to turn. I guess from that, I've learned that you, meaning me, we need to really cherish what we've got here. When we're gone, everybody else stays and keeps going. And yes, there is a modicum of my complete uncertainty as far as what's going to happen with my daughter. However, I know that there's people that no one's going to let her just become a homeless vagabond. Trust and the faith and the belief has to be there that she'll be taken care of and that everything's going to be okay. I've seen it over and over again. My husband passed away, tore my heart out, just was horrible experience. We are okay. My mom passed. We're okay. My brother passed. We're okay. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. I was working with a life coach. I had a life coach. This was about 6 years ago. And she said to me, we need to start working on your detachment from your daughter. And ooh, baby, I was like, nope, I'm not ready for that right now, Now this getting so close to death, there was nothing I could do about it. When your time is up, your time is up. And I just had to believe and be in the knowing that she was going to be taken care of. And now that I'm on the other side of it and I'm regaining health, I do still want to take those steps. It's not like I can sit here and go la-di-da-di-da. I've got to take those steps as a mom to figure out, is there enough in savings for her? How do I work this? And is there a day program? And that's why I'm building those things, because there's nothing out there that I would feel safe in being in right now. I do want to build those. Everything right now has a governmental stipend to it. Ever since the beginning, I said, we need to figure out a way to make adult living for people with autism privatized. I don't want to be up in heaven hanging out at a tequila bar, find out that her Medicare or her Medicaid gets canceled. That's a possibility. Working and taking inspired action toward that goal, not just sitting there and like letting fall from the sky like raindrops. I also do have a much deeper knowing and deeper understanding that it's all going to be okay. And sometimes you just don't know how. I didn't know how it was all going to be okay. I have evidence that it is going to be okay. Might be different, but it's still going to be okay.
You mentioned at one point during our little chitty chat today that there was a moment where you felt this overwhelming peace come over you. Where does that come from? Is that like a Costco thing out in Illinois? Is that a Michigan thing? Is that a Midwest thing is what I'm after? Can I get it out here in Oregon, or where can I pick that up? That peace that you're talking about. I would venture to guess there are some that would say, if you ask them, hey, do you have a peaceful life? I think most would probably scratch their head and say, well, yeah, I think so. Maybe. Let me check. Let me survey the room. Where does that come from, that peace?
It comes from the knock on the door, I think, for me. I think that's where it came from. Prior to getting ill, I had a fulfilled life and a full life. Was I under a tremendous amount of stress? Yes. Did I want a different life? Yes. Did I love the work I was doing? Yes. Was it killing me? Absolutely. I always was able to kind of envision what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get there. The peace, I'm not suggesting every one of your listeners runs out and has a near-death experience because that's not cool. I have to say, getting a taste of that shook me. No, didn't shake me. It woke me up. So not shook like as in, ooh, gosh, oh golly gee, what have I done? It was more like, gosh, wow, that was, dare I say, cool. Not saying goodbye to people. That part sucked. That was a cool, I guess, vision of what could be. And that feeling, I guess I think I've learned that life is about feeling. Life is not about doing. I used to chase the doing. I thought the doing would bring me the feelings of freedom and contentment and the feeling of love and the feeling of safety and the feeling of acceptance. I wanted all of those things. And I thought I had to go out and get them, be the best in my job, to get the accolades and to be accepted by my peers. When in reality, it's inside. So it's not about going out, it's about going in. Everything is done inside. We already have the answers. We have the tools. Yeah, we need some really great, smart people to show us where the rocks are hidden and how to get there. However, I believe it's all inside of us. I think it takes some real true honesty and getting super serious with yourself, not in a drab way, but just like, hey, is this what I believe? Is this what I want? What is it that I really want? What would I really love? What would I really love in my life? And a lot of times like, oh, I'd love $1 million or I'd love a new car. That's really not what you want. You really have to determine, well, how do you want to feel in life and go after that and then do the things that will bring you those experiences. No, it's not a Midwestern thing. And you can get it anywhere you're at. Certainly palm trees and white sand beaches are helpful for that for a short period of time. You can have it in the shower. You can have it on the tollway. You can have it anywhere. For me, I think a lot of it is nature-based. Love the silence that I have come to know in nature. I used to think that nature was buggy and sticky and sweaty, effortful. I don't believe that anymore. I believe nature is beautiful and creative, calming and peaceful and energizing. So I think a lot of it is what we think of life and how we get that calm and peace in our day. Don't get me wrong, contrast still happens. You know, your hot water tank still breaks, you blow a tire, all that stuff still happens. However, the gratitude that comes from getting a new hot water heater, even if it comes out of your vacation fund, the fact that you have the money to get a new hot water heater and the fact that you have hot water is important. So I think gratitude is the other piece in finding all those things that you can possibly be grateful for.
So I'm not asking this.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get in trouble, all right? So just for the
Okay.
record, I'm not asking this. So however old you are now, I want you to think back to when you were 30, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that you're older than 30. I'm just putting that out there. I'm going to guess
Just a
that.
little bit.
Maybe not
Just a little
much,
bit.
but maybe a little bit. So what are 4 words that 30-year-old you needed to hear?
30-year-old me. Let's see. That would have been. I had been married for 3 years at that time. What else? We didn't have kids at that time. We had just bought a house. Okay, so it's coming back to me. I think, oh yeah, that's coming back to me. I think she needed to hear that she was perfect and beautiful and wonderful just as she is. And I think she needed to hear that everything's going to work out and that she's safe.
Seems like you went way over on 4 words, by the way. I mean, not that we were counting. I mean, I was
I'm an overachiever by training, so.
How do you contrast that 30-year-old you versus you now?
I'm actually embodying and doing those things and believe and trust those things now. I'm actually living those now, whereas before they were really cool sound bites. I was like, womp, 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 womp. Yep. I didn't really understand what they meant, and now I live them.
Kelly, as we start to wrap up today, I'm curious about this. If people want to know about Kelly coaching and all things Kelly, is there a social media of choice? How does someone reach out to you if they're curious more about your story and your ability to motivate, challenge, encourage, gentle, because I know it's, Midwest living, like the gentle nudge forward. How does someone do that?
I'm born and raised in Chicago. We're gritty around here.
I
We're
know.
tough.
Yeah, you're tough. You're Midwest tough. Whoa, so tough. Anyway, how does someone do that?
We'll punch in and ask if you're okay. For my coaching, it's Kelly Weaver Consulting at gmail.com or kellyweaverconsulting.com. That's where people can find me. There's links to all of my social and stuff like that. I love to talk to people. There's a calendar on my website if you want to just book something and chit chat, whether it's about services or about me or whatever the case may be. You can reach me there. That's the best way to find me.
And maybe even if they have an autistic child, whatever age they may be in, that's in the wheelhouse or a facet of you as well, right?
Yeah. So if they have a kiddo with autism, I do consulting to programs for people with autism. I help parents navigate. That looks like I do some coaching to parents on where to go, how to go. I'm a good resource to get them in touch if they're struggling with their school systems and things like that. So yes, I'm a jack of many, many trades. And right now, just very grateful to help whom I can help. I always believe that the right people will pop into your life.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's a podcast. Who knows? We never know.
Who knows?
Kelly, I feel like we need some giggles because I feel like what we've talked about is kind of heavy. So we do this thing at the end of the show. It's called Heal Hustle. My guy, Zach, is going to tell us more about that. So Zach, take it away.
It's now that time in the show to play the fastest growing game in the podcast world. We call it Heal Hustle. Today, our guest will try to answer all 6 of these questions in 60 seconds or less to win a prize from our prize closet. Audience, feel free to play at home. Let's put 60 seconds on the clock. Ready, set, hustle!
The game begins in 3, 2, 1.
Who was your childhood crush?
Oh my gosh, a little guy named Chris that lived down the way. I kissed him in the sandbox when I was 7.
Oh my gosh. Chris, where are you now? Just saying.
Progressive, right? Chicago
Progressive,
girl.
yeah, absolutely. What is your secret talent?
My secret talent, I can make stained glass pretty well. I'm a stained glass maker.
Nice. Okay. Person you would trade places with for a year?
I think it would be really cool to trade places with an airline stewardess. Is that what you call them these days?
Sure.
I'd love to be able to travel.
Yeah, I like it. Weirdest job you've ever had?
Weirdest job I've ever had, stocking cigarettes at a pharmacy.
Biggest risk you've ever taken?
I'm not a big risk taker, but some people say starting a school from my basement was a pretty big risk. So I would have to say that.
I would echo that. And then last but certainly not least, who needs a hug from Kelly today and why?
Oh, I think my daughter. She needs a hug. She always needs hugs. So I think she needs a hug just to remember, kids with autism or adults with autism, that social component is always a little bit off. And so teaching her what it's like to receive love in physical touch is always really important. So I try to hug her and make sure she understands that. So.
Love that. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate all that you shared. We really love that you took some time out of your day to be with us today. Really value that and appreciate that. Thank you again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, that is it. That is all. That is, in fact, our show today. Okay, small story. My aunt passed away somewhat unexpectedly, and we had a funeral service for her in the great metropolis of Myrtle Point, Oregon. It was in those moments that I wanted to share at her funeral, and I actually sat down and I wrote something out, little story, a little poem, and I actually entitled it, What's Good About Goodbye. I read this at her service, and I got done, and people are leaving the church, and the funeral director pulls on my shirt and kind of stops me, and he's like, hey man, and he's got like tears streaming down his eyes. I was like, what's going on, buddy? This is like the funeral director. He sees death every day. He's like, man, that is the most powerful thing I've ever heard. And I've been doing this for a long time. He's like, I never cry at these things. You made me cry today. And I was like, thank you. So again, I'm not saying necessarily that Kelly's story maybe made you cry. Maybe it did. I don't know. But here's what I am saying that I want you to ponder. Who's the one person you would struggle with saying goodbye to right now? Who is it? Think about it. And are you ready? Are you really ready to say goodbye if you had to? Because if you're not, maybe this week you can think about how that would look, what that would look like. Are you really ready to say goodbye? And if you're not, again, I ask yourself, maybe it's time to get ready. You never know. You just never know. Remember this as we go. Also, don't forget, remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. You, of course, can find us on the social medias at OPS Podcast Show, under Facebook, Instagram, and X. And of course, you can find all of our shows at opspodcast.com. And again, as we go, don't forget those things. Very important. And stay tuned till next week when, guess what? That's right, we're going to walk in other people's shoes.